On the 26th of July, it was announced that this wouldn't be the last of seeing Michael C. Hall's Dexter on our screens, with a reboot series set to bring the character back, with the intention of potentially bringing us multiple seasons. And with the series finale airing recently, I thought this would be a good time to discuss why I believe that Dexter Resurrection is the reboot the fans deserved. And just for a heads up, this discussion will contain major spoilers. At its peak, Dexter was must-watch television, with it able to blend mystery, gruesome violence, and a darkly twisted sense of humour. It never received the same level of adulation as a Breaking Bad or The Sopranos, but for me, it was right up there as one of the greatest dramas of its generation. However, when discussing Dexter, a common talking point is unfortunately that final season, in particular, the series finale of the original run, with it regularly cited as one of the biggest letdowns in television history. And whilst I tend to like the series finale more than most, I still had issues with the direction the show went. So when they announced a revival of the series with Dexter New Blood, I was excited to see them finally make amends and right the wrongs of the previous attempt to provide closure to the series. But once again, they couldn't stick the landing, with New Blood's finale receiving an underwhelming response from the fans. So going into watching this reboot series, I had a few important questions, with the most pertinent being, why? Why bring Dexter back? They'd already tried it once, to middling success, so why bother trying again? And for me, that was crucial for me to enjoy Dexter Resurrection, as it needed to justify its existence. Set immediately after the events of the New Blood finale, Dexter was able to survive the seemingly fatal gunshot wound after convincing his own son Harrison to shoot him. Whilst Dexter is recovering in hospital, Harrison starts a new life in New York City, with him working as a bellhop at a fancy hotel. However, just like his father, Harrison has a darkness to him, and after stopping a sexual predator from attacking a drunken woman, he brutally murders him before chopping up his body and leaving them in black bin bags, like his dad taught him. With the remains found soon after, word of this murder becomes a major newsworthy incident and draws the attention of Dexter once he hears how the body was dealt with. Convinced that this must be Harrison's doing, a still recovering Dexter decides to head to New York to find his son and help him, whilst being followed by Angel Batista, who's now convinced that Dexter is in fact the Bay Harbor Butcher. As you'd expect, Michael C. Hall is once again tremendous playing the titular character. It's a role he was born to play, so I'm not surprised to see that I can't give up on the character. However, he's far from the only good performer this season, as the cast is arguably the most impressive part of Dexter Resurrection. While stalking a local serial killer, Dexter stumbles across a group of serial killers that meet up for lavish private events, which have been set up by Leon Prater, a billionaire philanthropist. And it just so happens that this guy is played by none other than Peter Dinklage, who's brilliant. It's such a random casting that it felt like a twist in itself, but it surprised me with how well he worked in the role. It could have easily come across as stunt casting, but in reality, it didn't feel like that whatsoever. He ends up being the big bad for the season, and it shows that you can be a great villain without necessarily being a physical presence. What he lacks in stature, he more than makes up for it with his charisma, complex persona, and wealth. You can tell how committed they were to making Dexter Resurrection as good as it could possibly be, just by looking at all the talent on screen. The cast is absolutely stacked this season, with Uma Thurman playing Charlie, Prater's head of security, and then you've got Kristen Ritter as Lady Vengeance, Neil Patrick Harris as the tattoo collector, and Eric Stonestreet as Rapunzel, all of whom do a great job whenever they're on screen. Honestly, the idea that serial killers would meet up for annual dinner parties is pretty ridiculous, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't fully on board with it. Seeing Dexter around people with similar ages was fascinating, but he still couldn't be himself. 1, because he was impersonating another serial killer, and 2, because he intended to kill every single one of them. When hearing all of the stories, Dexter quickly establishes that they don't have any sort of code, meaning they're all perfect targets for him, and seeing how he goes about taking them out is super entertaining. I particularly enjoyed watching his manipulation of Gemini Man. He played on his arrogance brilliantly and outsmarted him. In a moment, that felt vintage Dexter. But to the show's credit, there are so many great moments this season, where you're watching Dexter do Dexter type things, and most of the time, they're done really well. The writers are just having fun this season. They're clearly not trying to make Dexter into some prestige work of art. They've fully embraced all of the silliness in Dexter and found a way to make it feel fresh and exciting once again. They're much more interested in being fun and entertaining, even if it does come at the expense of logical writing and consistency on occasions. Sometimes the contrivances do become a little overbearing, like Harrison being able to kill the sex offender, dismember him, and dispose of the body without any camera picking him up. I mean, they literally had to have beds shitting over the cameras outside to explain how he wasn't seen, which is just stupidly convenient. But you've got to just kind of go with it, or this season will drive you insane. Pretty early on, you can see that the writers have been listening to the feedback towards New Blood, as one of the biggest points of frustration was the fact that, despite it being built up to all season, Batista somehow never ends up meeting Dexter to have that face-to-face confrontation. In the original series, Dexter and Batista had a real bond, so we were desperate to see them reunited, with Batista finally knowing who the real Bay Harbor Butcher is. But it never happened. Thankfully though, in Resurrection, it's not long before we finally get the long-awaited face-to-face. It's been a long time coming, but somehow they're able to make it worth the wait. The dynamic between Dexter and Batista is an important part of this season, with it getting plenty of screen time. David Zayas is able to slip back into the role effortlessly, with him playing the charismatic and determined cop, as well as he always has. He's a fan favourite character for good reason, so having him play a vital role in this season was always going to go down well with fans. Batista has always been a flawed but compelling character. He makes his fair share of mistakes, but the guy is so earnest and conveys so much humanity that you can't help but root for him. And that's still the case even in Dexter Resurrection. He's obsessed with proving that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher and blames him for the deaths of Deb, LaGuerta, and Oaks. Such is the strength of Batista's character, and some of the writing in general over the years, the show is able to create such a unique dichotomy between rooting for Dexter whilst also wanting Batista to succeed and be happy. But over the course of the season, we see that both of these things can't happen. Once Batista spots Dexter with Prater, he reveals to Prater that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, unaware that Prater is a serial killer fanatic, and it doesn't go as expected. Dexter is summoned to Prater's vault to find Batista strapped to a table, and Prater gives him an offer: kill Batista and he will hook Dexter up with serial killers from all over the world. Thankfully, Dexter doesn't take up his offer and instead decides to free Batista. But Batista is not the most receptive of this moment of mercy and immediately attacks Dexter, almost strangling him to death. That is, until Prater steps in, shooting Batista in the back multiple times. And I really took this death hard. Fair play to David Zayas for his performance this season, and his final fuck you to Dexter was such a bittersweet moment that encapsulated the character perfectly. Dexter and his son's relationship is a major through line this season. Initially, Harrison wants nothing to do with his dad and rejects his olive branch whenever offered. He blames Dexter for all the trauma he's gone through and wants nothing to do with him. However, Harrison is not as calculated as Dexter. His killing of the sex offender was impulsive and reckless rather than strategic, so Dexter knows that he needs to step in to stop his son from being arrested. He's able to turn the cops' attention onto Lady Vengeance in another classic Dexter moment, which is hugely appreciated by Harrison. But to me, this wasn't the driving force of their bond this season. Their relationship developing into something much stronger is due to Dexter finally being honest with him. One particularly powerful moment is when Dexter and Harrison have a heart-to-heart, and Dexter finally admits the truth. He's the reason for all the pain around them. It was Dexter's actions that led to Rita's death, and same with Deb. I really appreciated this moment of introspection and accountability from Dexter. He's shown growth, and the initial signs of finally becoming a good dad. And when Harrison presses the code to release Dexter from Prater's vault in the season finale, which risked his own safety and freedom, it's a beautiful moment that shows how far the relationship has come. Whilst they both clearly have violent tendencies, they are very different people, but the love is still there, despite all they've gone through. It's a bit cliche, but Dexter Resurrection feels like a season made for the fans, rather than the critics. Like, I don't expect it to win any awards. It's dark, yet silly, but undeniably Dexter, and it knows what the fans want, and that's all it cares about. The best compliment I can give is that it just feels like another season of Dexter, which might sound like a negative, but Dexter was a great show, ignoring the final season. It doesn't feel like them trying to do Dexter again, it's them doing it, and it feels right. It doesn't feel like a poor impersonation, which was my biggest fear. This is the Dexter that I know and love, and I'm glad that it's back. Because of this, I can absolutely recommend watching Dexter Resurrection. It gets 2 thumbs up from me, as it's certainly worth watching. The finale sets up future seasons really well, with Dexter having Prater's list of prominent serial killers from all over the country. So hopefully it gets greenlit for a follow-up season. And considering the reaction to this was so strong, I'm pretty optimistic that it's gonna happen. So, what did you think of Dexter Resurrection, and will you be tuning in to a follow-up season? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time for another video. Goodbye.